It's a little different than the other stacks. For encryption, just like some of the other ones, bcrypt is like the default encryption standard for the most part. So like you'll see in other stacks, you just refer to as bcrypt. So the key parts is you have a couple Angular forms, obviously, just like every other log reg that you've done. You can use them on one controller. You can split it up. That's kind of up to you. Some people make like their own like login registration controller. Some just keep it in the user's controller, since they are users. You only really need one factory. One key with login registration, when you get a logged in user, one thing you can do, if you're not using like cookies or anything, you can actually just save the logged in user into the factory. And then just every time they navigate through, just check to see if that logged in user exists in each controller. And then if they don't, you just kick them to login registration page. So obviously this is going to be full mean. You got to use the back end. I'm not going to do the Angular side validations. That was an Angular section. You can do those. Those are good for user experience and to save resources, because if you could stop the client with stuff on their side before it even gets to your server, then you're just saving your server time by letting the client do the validations first. But people can hack through that, which is why you still got to do server-side validations. Now the tricky part about login registration, and things change, is, in case you haven't already noticed, since Node and Express and all this stuff, Angular is constantly being like updated, things change. So the way I used to do things no longer works. So now I'm kind of learning a few different things of the new way of doing it. But one thing that is the same is these error objects that it produces are these crazy long objects with a whole bunch of keys, and just you'll see once we pull that up. So the trick is trying to get to exactly what you want. Validation's pretty easy because when you make your schema, whereas before you just did like name string, now you can just expand on that and just add certain ones like required, true, trim, true. There's some generic ones like min length, things like that. You can also create your own, like this validate here. They got validator to check to see if it's a valid phone number, things like that. Min and max age. There's a lot of different things you can do with validators. And there's also some Node packages that do validators, that do validation. I think there's a Mongoose validation. There's I used one, I already put it down, called Mongoose Unique Validator. Helps with checking for uniqueness. Alright, let's go ahead and create a basic login and registration. So, let's see, I'm just going to create a new project folder. Logreg, we'll do that. CD into that. Let's go ahead and initialize npm. And install, what are we going to need? Express, body parser, Mongoose. Anything else offhand anyone know of? No? Okay, if we get to it, we'll add it in there. Let's go ahead and add those. Oh yeah, bcrypt, duh. We'll need that one. Bcrypt, save. Alright. Oh, why did it do that? Okay. And let's go ahead and do a Bower install. Just do Angular for now. Okay. That's really small. Let's make that bigger. Okay, so where's my new one? Logreg. Let's create some of the stuff we know we're going to need, like a server.js file, and we know we're going to need a client folder, and a server folder. And then inside that server folder, we're going to have a config folder. Going to have a controllers folder and models. And in config, I just like to kind of set up my whole structure right away if I can. That way I don't have to worry about it later. So inside config, we're going to have the Mongoose.js and the routes.js. Yeah. Yeah. All right. And then I'm just going to use a user's controller and model. So let's go in here and just say users.js for the controller and user.js for the model. All right, and then in client, we're going to need a static folder. And I'm not going to do the Angular routing and partials. I'm just going to do everything on the index.html. So I'll just make an index.html page. Okay, and inside static, we'll have a JavaScript folder. And in there, I'm going to make 3 files. My Angular main.js, where I'm going to basically set up the Angular, and then one for Angular controllers and another for factories. .js. All right. Okay. Let me close some of these things out. Open them as I need them. All right, so let's set up our server first so we can get something running. And let's require our Express. Require body parser. What else do we need? Sure, we need something else. Then let's do var app equals express. Run that. Let's say set up our body parser stuff so that we can get our request and response stuff and JSON stuff. So app.use body parser, and was it URL encoded? No, it's body parser dot URL encoded and extended true. Let's do our app.use body parser.json. Let's go ahead and set up our static routes. So app.use express.static dir name plus client, and one for the Bower components, dir name plus okay, and we're gonna need routes. So var route setter. I always forget what I call this. Those require, and this is in my what is it? So config. Oh wait, no. Server config routes.js. Let's go ahead and invoke that and pass an app right away. Hopefully I did that right. And just get the server running. If I miss anything anytime, you guys can chime in too. So, no, we cannot put on 5,000.
Why?
Because I've already got too many ports going. So, I got set port for each language.
What's the PHP port?
8888. And we'll just do our usual console.log running on 8,000. And then let me just go ahead and put something in index.html so that hopefully it'll show something. Really? There we go. login registration header. Hello there. Okay, and I'm just going to go ahead and require everything that I need right off the bat so we know right away if we have any problems. So first we'll do our Angular, which is in Bower components, Angular.js. Really? Alright. And I'm going to require all these Angular controller factory main. And those are going to be in the what route? Oh, Angular route. I'm not going to do partials. What we in static oops, where'd it go? JS Angular main.js. Copy that. And Angular controller. And yep, factories. Okay. Let's see what happens. Error. Okay, that's fine. Oh, routes is not defined. Oh. I should be getting the same thing when I... Oh yeah, I'm missing the Mongoose one too. What is it? How's that one go? But we need to... Well... Acquire... and this is the server config Mongoose.js. That should give me an error too because I don't have them made up yet. So where's config? Let's go to open routes in Mongoose. Let's just do the Mongoose first. So bar mongoose equals acquire mongoose, and then mongoose dot connect. How's this one go again? I think it's MongoDB localhost and name of the database. I'll just call it log demo.
So would you have to go in and create that database first, or it just creates it for you?
It'll create it for you. Yeah, you don't have to worry about making it first in Mongo. So when you connect, it will not create it. So if you do use your Mongo shell, and you go into your shell, and you do show DBs, and it doesn't show it, don't freak out, because Mongo won't. It'll basically say, okay, you can use this database, but it won't actually go through the trouble of creating it until you save some data to it. So, because I did that for a while, and I was tripping out for like an hour, like, where the hell is it? I know I'm needing it, and then realized, well, until you actually save data, it doesn't even bother creating it. All right, I think I need more, but I think that's all I need to require that. We'll see. Then here in routes, man, I'm blanking. How did this one go? Was it var path? I don't know if I use path in routes. By the way, I try to memorize everything and know everything, but don't like beat yourselves up and try to remember how to do this all offhand off memory. Just, it's okay to just have this already done and then just copy it, but don't copy it, retype it. Because if you do that, and if you work in a stack over and over, you will remember and memorize it. But do not worry about trying to memorize it right now. So I'm probably a bad example because I'm constantly trying to memorize it. The what?
On the routes, you have to call the controller that you want to run the.
Yeah. Which does not exist yet. So, yeah. Oh yeah, it's a function. And I think that's all we need to not shoot that error. Oh wait, no, still. Oh, must be MongoDB. Well, isn't that nice? It actually tells you how to fix the error. Yeah, that's a first, I think. Oh, it's running. All right. I know we're going to need more stuff, but it's a start. Okay, index is loading up. Now, this login registration, when you guys get to it, build it, get it working, get your validations working, and just make sure to spend the time. I'm sure we've told you this for Python. Hopefully you were told this in Python. And Ruby, I know you guys were told this several times. Get all this done for every option: name, username, alias, email. Just get it all working for every possible creation of a username and all that, so that when you get to the belt exam, you can basically just port it all over, tweak the few things you need for the requirements of the belt exam. Because if you're spending 2 hours on login registration, well, you shouldn't be spending 2 hours login registration, because you should have already done this beforehand. Because every exam has login registration. So, no excuses if you spend a lot of time on it during the exam. Okay, what was I doing? Oh, yeah. All right, plus with this login registration, like I said, these errors are sometimes a little tough to figure out. And there's so many different things going on here that it can take some time. So let's build out our forms. Hold on. Let me just pull this up here. All right, field set. And we'll make one for login and one for register. And here, put our form. Okay, let's just have a simple one. Username. Oh wait, this is login, so we'll just log in with username. Type text. Okay, now just be careful when you do your login registration. Since these both have to do with the user, it kind of makes sense to do ng model user.username, but you're going to have that in both the register and login, so you want to differentiate it somehow. Otherwise, when you fill out one, it's going to fill out the other, and it's just going to be weird. So I like to do like in the log one, call like log user, and then in the registration, I'll call the user object reg user, just to keep them separated. Oh yeah, and I need my controller. In fact, I need to get all of Angular, but I'll do that in a second. First, I'm building out the forms. Try to keep a pattern. All right. And then label, call this password. Oh, this is a login, so that's actually all we need. So type password. And, oh yeah, I'm going to do the controller as. So I know I'm going to call it user's controller. The alias I'm going to give it is UC log user dot password. Just go ahead and change this one up here. UC dot log user dot username. Okay. And our input tag or submit button. Value login. Okay. And oops, too far. Copy that for the register portion. We're just going to add the name. First name, we'll just do the first name, last name. First name. Text. ng model. All right, still going to be UC, and so I'm going to call this reg user. First name. All right, set the same thing for last name. And change these to reg. And this is going to be the register button. All right. All right, so let's put some of our Angular stuff in here. So let's do the ng app, yeah, something like that, equals, yeah. All right, and then for the body, let's set our controller. And I'm going to call this users controller, alias as UC. Okay. We already got our ng models to save that. So on submit, we'll go ng submit equals, and here we're going to create a login function in the controller, but we still got to refer to the alias. And here we'll do register. Okay. Well, hopefully that's everything. We'll worry about errors later. Now it's probably gonna, will it give me errors? Let's find out. Okay, server's still running. Refresh, there's our form. Let's go ahead and pull up our console right off the bat. Oh, I saw a whole bunch of red. Hey, yeah. Because I haven't made those files yet, so. Let's make these Angular main factories and controllers. So Angular main, we'll call this log app, angular.module. I call this my app. I'm not going to pass anything in right now. Yeah, because I'm not doing ng route, so we're fine here. So this might be a really barren main file because of that. Sorry. Okay, and then here, say log app.controller, users controller, and we know we're going to need the factory. So singular user factory. I can't think of what else we'll need, so I'll just write this for now. Function. Oh wait, I think I need to put these in quotes. Function user factory. All right. And just to make sure this is working, users controller loaded. Oh wait, this is a factory. Oops. Let's pull that out. Put that in the file it belongs in. Sorry. There. Okay. Now let's create our factory. Log app.factory. User factory. Pretty sure I need some there, but in the meantime, let's just make sure it's loading. Okay. Server still running. Refresh. All right, less errors. The factory is loaded, but not the controller. Error user factory must return. Oh yeah, because duh. So in the factory, let's create our factory object. And then put space for all the stuff that we're going to create. At the end, return factory. Hopefully, All right, factory is loaded up. User's controller is loaded up. All right, so far we're working. Let's go ahead and go back to our back end now. And okay, I'm going to have to pull up another Mongoose file that I had. Like I said, there's nothing wrong with looking at your prior stuff. I'll make sure my routes one was okay. In fact, I'm going to do what I told you don't do. Copy that. Sorry, no, that's the controller I'm going to make, and it's already there. Okay.
So is that controller under your client folder?
No, this is on the back end. So, right, this is on the server side. So this routes file connects to the server and only deals with the server. It doesn't care about anything on the front end. I know for some reason the tabs stay small, so you can't really read what's up there.
I'm just trying to find the relative path.
Well, the path to this, the server.js will require the routes file, so when the server starts, it instantly goes to the routes and passes an app. So anytime it gets the routes, it'll go into this file, read the route, and then, like this app.post, you'll set your rules for what you're expecting and where to go.
Okay.
And then, yeah, this users will refer to the server-side controller, and then whatever function method you want to send it to inside that server-side controller. Let's do this. Just going to copy all of that. Actually, let me just do this. And delete that. And okay. Personally, I like to, anything that I require, I prefer to put them all at the top, except in those cases where it breaks. But so we got our Mongoose, we're requiring a Mongoose module, file system module, connecting to the database, creating a models path variable, just because it's easier. And then this whole block, really, we don't have to have it in this case. I mean, let's just say we commented that all out. We can just say some like require, what would it be? And we're inside Mongoose inside of config. Sorry, trying to see my file structure. So we would have to, I think, back up one, and then go into models, and I've got a user.js. So I believe that should work. So you can always do that and not even need all this like more complicated stuff. But the problem is once you start getting a more complex app and you're going to have like 10 different models in here, you're going to have to do that for every single one. And then when you're like, oh, I want to add this model, you go and add it and you forget to do this. Whereas you just do this right off the bat, it'll automatically require everything in the models folder. Even if halfway through you start adding models, you don't have to worry about coming back in here. It'll just automatically search for them. So that's the reason why we do this instead of, repeating all this stuff. So, okay. So now routes in Mongoose should be set up. We'll need to add stuff to routes later, but I think server's set up for now. So let's go ahead and create our model. And we need to require Mongoose, again on this one, because we're going to set up our schema in here. And then let's define our schema. So our user schema equals mongoose.schema, and we'll call this user. Oh wait, no. How'd it go again? Oh, user schema. Oh, I'm getting ahead of myself here. yeah. first I gotta add the stuff. Yeah, kind of skipping ahead. All right. So what do we put on our form? We're gonna need a first name, last name, username, password. So we'll go first name, and that is gonna be an object type string, and let's just go ahead and add some validations right off the bat. So we're gonna make everything required, and that's easy. You can just say true. Let's just get through these so we can add some more validations. Last name is also type string, required true, username, type string, also required, but also these need to be unique.
So after the required true, you can put like a string after it, right?
Yes, I was going to get into that because these will spit out generic messages. If you want more custom messages, you can do that, and I will show you in a little bit. Let's say I believe min length is one, and let's take a look at some documentation here really quick. If the internet's working, is it? Looking for networks, I don't think it is. Mongoose validations. Oh, it is working. Okay. Mongoose.js validations. Built-in validators. Okay, here's some min max. So that's like if you want min max number. That's a good one for like age. If you have some where it's like age minimum 18 or something like that. You can do enum, restrict it to basically only a couple options. Oh, that looks like some testing. Okay. And I'm actually not sure if unique is part of it. Okay, so no validators run undefined except require. Oh, here we go. Should have just looked here. So there's not very many built-in ones, as you can see. So numbers just have min and max. Strings have the enum, match, max length, and min length. So actually my unique wouldn't work. I think that's where there's a Mongoose module for unique that I use. Max length and min length. So let's see what that looks like. So min length. So you give it an array. First number obviously is going to be the minimum length and your message. Okay. So let's just keep this simple. So I have to type a billion things. So let's just say the min length is 2. And then just make our message username must be 2 characters. And now to Shaz's point.
The min length was all lowercase in the docs.
Oh, was it? Oh yeah, guess that is. All right. See, now this min length, I don't know if it has a, it might have a generic message, I'm not sure. But if you don't like the generic message, like say for this required, it says something, you just want to say something like, I don't know, you want to be a sarcastic, we'll say. You could always put in your own and say, yo dum dum. Need your name. You know. So this will, if you do that, if you add in a second one, it'll override the generic, and it'll, when you figure out eventually how to display it, it'll display what you put in there instead of the generic one. All right, and we add a password, which is a string, and obviously those are required. And then you can do other stuff, like I did this one earlier. I'll just go ahead and pull it up because it uses regex, and if you ever get so good you can memorize regex, yeah, just amazing. So here I did this like validator function, and here's the regex for, like, say you want to have it require a number, uppercase letter, and a special character. So
Question for you.
yeah.
Getting a quick glance at your regex, you're setting minimum length equals to 6, but then in your regex you're validating strings between 8 and 32 character long. Isn't that going to be a conflict?
Yeah. Got it.
Was it 6? Well, actually, I don't think I even had them in. Well, this one I was doing earlier, it probably would be in length. We're going to change it to 4, though. Well, I think the second one is a max length, so we'll see if that gives us an error or not. Hopefully not.
That's a minute.
Well, I think, like you said, it's between 4 and or whatever and 32. So I only have a
minimum of 4 and less
yeah.
than 32.
Nah, I'm not going to put a max length on that. I'm just going to leave them in length. All right.
And what min is supposed to be all lowercase too?
Oh yeah. Okay. So that is our user schema preliminary here. So let's go ahead and create it. Var user equals mongoose dot. Jeez. What is it again? Mongoose dot. Oh, schema. User, and pass in the schema we've defined. And okay, yeah. And that should be all we need here. Let's go ahead and go to our controller, server-side controller. Actually, let's do this. Var users, because that's what, no, we're going to say user. So, yeah. So this is going to get the instance of the user model, save the user so we can run all of our commands on it. And let's see. All right. We already got an error. That's fine. Define type u at 0. Oh, this is one of those weird errors. Something, so it's got to be something on my model file. Let's cheat. Oh, okay. I completely forgot this whole part. Where I'm defining it, it's new mongoose.schema. That's where I was going earlier. Oops. It's new mongoose. So we have to create a new instance of it. And that is inside a function. And therefore should end right there. Okay. But that's not what's causing the error, so maybe it was this. Let's see what else was different. I don't think I need that. I don't think that's the problem. Oh wait, hold on. Actually, I should look. It's probably something to do with this. Undefined type, something plus name plus something at plus path. I wonder if that's to do with possibly the Mongoose file.
I would console log models path because I don't think that's what you.
Yeah, nice. I think that's another parentheses on that last one.
Your model's path.
Oh, okay.
You see?
Oh,
You see it
okay.
right there? It's doing // slash.
Yeah.
And that's the issue. I think you could just do. Pardon?
Well, that's giving me. Okay, our model's path is now going into. Oh, it's going into config, so it's not backing up one.
Do path.join?
Yeah.
Oh, that's.
Don't jump into the dot.
But I said that.
You can get a Brad Zeppelin mom.
Leading slash Bob said. There you go. See what happens there.
Don't you know?
Path is undefined, so
Yeah, you need to jump bar.
yeah.
Good weird, like.
That's what I had there for you too.
Cool.
You got to learn sometime. 37 times.
Okay, well now my path is fine.
Scroll.
Okay.
It's going into the server, into the models, so that part's good. Wait, where was the error for users? It is at, oh, route. It's in my routes file. It's getting multiple errors in two, so it's either in routes or my controller.
Oh, you're not in the right.
Oh.
Yeah, never mind.
There's a way around.
I didn't get my server-side controller built yet.
No.
I was looking at the wrong one.
Server-side controller was not defined. If I just look for user, the controller would be good.
I used to do that.
Alright, so recording that, our user equals mongoose.model user, and then this also exports, right? Module.exports. Okay. Hey, we got green. Well, and black. No red. It's all working now. Okay, we're working. So we created the schema. We have a whole bunch of validations. Here's some bunch of stuff we can do here. With this user schema, because it is an instance of the schema object, it has a bunch of other functions that it can do. Like method, you can add your own methods to it. And I don't remember these offhand, so let's just walk through some of these that I wrote previously. We'll copy some, so. But I want to look up, I want to pull up my, this guy.
Is that a different project?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah, I pre-did some stuffs because, like I said, I'm not, right now, I haven't memorized all these, especially since something's changed from last time, but. So I'm going to copy this line. So the unique thing that I used, it actually uses a unique validator. It's a plugin. So schema has a .plugin. And then I just add my own message for that. We'll see what happens later. But okay. So this is where your encryption stuff will come into play. And I'm just going to copy this stuff. All right. Okay. So on this user schema, which is an instance of a schema from the Mongoose module, you can do a .methods. And what you add to that, basically you're adding your own method to it. So this one, is this going to be part of the encryption that we did with bcrypt? So generate hash, it's going to be a function we create inside of there. And it's going to take in a password, and it's going to return something else. So it's going to return, well, it's going to take that password, and using the bcrypt module that we installed with npm, we're going to use the hash sync function in it that takes in a couple different arguments. First, it takes in a password, and I think if all you do is just send a password, that's fine. Problem is you want to add a salt to it. Does everybody remember salt and what that does? All right, cool. So I don't have to explain that. So setting a parameter is where you actually make the salt, and that's a different function inside of bcrypt, which is just bcrypt.genSaltSync. And I think this argument is how long you want that salt. Yeah, because this hash is basically if somebody got your hash password and then they found out what the real world password is, then all they have to do is look up every other instance of that hash, and they would have that password for whoever uses it. Whereas when she had the salt, then it adds a weird jumbled string, so it makes it impossible for them to figure it out. Well, not impossible. And then you also want to do one where you want to validate a password. So generate hash, obviously you're going to use that when you create the user, they have the password, it passes validations. Obviously you don't want to store that password in a database, like on my project, because I never learned about bcrypt when I went through it. So fortunately my project, if you go to it, has this big blob that a tooltip I have pop up for anyone that stumbles, like it's online, to say, please don't use real passwords, which I will fix that now that I learned this. So that's for that part. Then the second one you're doing for upon a login, you want to validate. So you're just creating a function, takes in a password, and then bcrypt has this function called compareSync, where you basically pass it in the password that the user put in and the password from the database, and it compares them, and then it obviously returns true or false. But user schema, other stuff you can do like pre, so you can actually say, before you do something, like say pre what? Well, pre-save, run this function, make this dot password equals this dot generate hash this dot password. So what is this doing? This is saying, because what calls this generate hash function? And that's what this is going to do. So user object gets created, it passes all your server-side validations, so you want to go save, and then this pre will pick it up, and before it actually runs that save, it will first take the password and calls this generate hash method, because this right here refers to user schema, and you pass in what this dot password is, so it just hashes it. And this is what actually hashes before you save it to the database. There's also a couple other ones, like I think post, doing something after, and something else I can't think offhand. Virtual, .virtual, I think that's basically giving it another attribute. So say you wanted to do, you have your user object and you would do user.username or user.firstname, user.lastname. Well, what if you want the full name? Well, if you create this virtual, it'll let you call on user.name, user.name.full or whatever, and then it'll look here in the virtual and say, okay, well, I need to get something, get this dot name first name and this dot name last name, combine them together, so it's going to return the two things connected together. But I'm not going to use that. So I think we got our model all hooked up. Let's go ahead and put some stuff in our controller. Well, we know, first one we're going to do is register. So let's just create a, register is same as create, so we're just going to call it create. And that's going to be a function. Oh yeah, we need a rec and res. Let's go ahead, before I write any code out, let's just see if we're getting a rec.body. Okay. Nope, didn't like that.
Do you use a create equals function?
Yeah. I believe you're right. Yeah, that was it. That's how easy it is to get things mixed up. Alright, because I do a couple different methods. I think the other method I used a colon with it. If we go back to our application, it's still not going to work, so we have not done any front-end stuff. So refresh this. If we just hit register, it does nothing. Just fine. We haven't told it to do anything. So let's go to Angular main. Okay, when we submit the form, it goes to uc.register. What is UC? It is this guy here. It does not have a register, so let's type that in. This dot register. Oh wait, I don't need that. Equals function. And let's just make sure we're getting whatever we need. And for this, what was it? Reg user. So let's console.log. Before I forget, let's do this for self equals this. Reg user. Okay. But what's it going to do? This dot register, when they click on it, it's going to grab their data and it's going to call the factory. So let's call it user factory dot. We'll also go register. And what are we going to pass it? We're going to pass it the reg user object, and then a couple callbacks. It's actually going to be two callbacks. So either one is going to expect something back. The first callback is going to be if everything goes good. So it's kind of our success. So in this one, we're just going to data. Alright. And we'll figure out what to do with it later. The second callback is going to be after this. And I'm going to refer to this as error because the second error callback is going to be what's going to happen if there's an error. Let's follow this along. It's going to go user factory, call the .register, so factory.register, this function, and this is going to take in the user object, the first callback, and then the second one that I will just call error callback. So it's a callback that runs if there's an error. What do? Well, first, just to be safe, let's console.log that user object, so if there's an error we can look at it right away. Then this is where, oh, I almost forgot, because we are connected to server side, we need to pass in our HTTP, because we will call on that, and this is a post, and we're just going to send it to users, and we're going to pass in those same error callback. I think that's right. Okay. So following along, once we get the user here, it's going to post, which will hit the routes. Let's pull that up because I know I did not create a route. I'm in the right folder. Yep. Okay. So I already had it done before. So it's going to hit app.post will catch that route, that HTTP post request, find it for users. It will send it to the user's controller, server controller, create function. I think we got enough to at least test something out. So let's just, oh wait, not yet, because we already have an error. Route.post requires callback functions. Let me check my server files, see if there's something I'm missing there. Might get an error with bcrypt. I never did require that. Since I already saw it, I'll just go ahead and add that in there. But I know that's not the error. Do we need something else in here? Oh. Don't call it right away. Does that do anything? That was it. So I forgot when I'm exporting my controller, I need to immediately invoke it right after. So that's I guess apparently the callback functions that the routes wasn't getting for whatever reason, but as soon as I invoked it, it's running again. But our front side isn't working anymore. Oh, that's because I need to refresh it. Alright, so this is all working. Let's just throw in, oh, I didn't get my confirm password. Okay, that's alright. Okay, let's see what's going on. So we tried to create a user intentionally to fail validations. And we got our object here, which is what we created. That's coming out of the Angular controller. And we know it's going to the factory because then it's logging that object inside of the Angular factory. And then it's getting back a bad request. So I think this, since it's getting to the factory, is probably what it's getting back from the server. Well, it has to be what it's getting back from the server. So let's take a look at our server. Syntax error, unexpected token F at parse. Okay, I've seen this before. Some of you, I think, have seen it too. So when we sent the object from the factory, basically the F, the first thing in my object, if you notice, is first name. And so it's seeing that F, and it's throwing an error. So let's go ahead and set upon the console.log at parse. It's when it parsed it, it's when it had the problem. So let's try, I shouldn't need it here, but let's just see what happens. See if we do json.stringify, everything's good. Let's go back here, refresh. still the same thing. There. Okay. I need to, before I pass it, I need to put it in, where am I passing it? I should be passing it right here, right? Okay, that was it. I wasn't actually passing the object either. I was getting it from rec.body. Okay, so we passed it back there. All right, we got something logged. Oops, let's follow it along. So went through the routes. We know it went to the user's controller, into the create. I don't even think I need to do this. Let's find out. I think I do need to do that. Still fine. Okay, still fine. So back on our controller, we've got our rec.body. It is the user. So now let's go ahead and create new user equals new instance of the user object from the mongoose.model. And we're passing it rec.body. And then we're going to do user.save, and it'll try to save, but it should hit errors. We'll do here, it's going to be, how does this go? All right, let's look back. That's what it was. We pass in a callback in here. And we'll just say if error console.log error else console.log data. Because this is a controller, this is where we write down what our response is. And if there's an error, we can actually go ahead and respond with an error code. I have to look it up. I think that's what it was. Oh, res.status. That's right, because it's a status. So if you want to define your own error code, res.status. So let's say I think saw it earlier, 422 was something about bad object or something. We'll see it. And since now we're no longer rendering, we're no longer doing any of that, we're just responding with JSON every time. And we're going to give it this error object. Else, everything's good. And we should get back, it should return us the instance of what we created. So let's just return that user. So, okay, save that. Server's still running. Let's go and refresh this. Register. What do we get? All right. Oh, we got a 500 internal server error. Something's going on in here. Reference error user is not defined. Oh, because I called it new user, so it's yelling at me about this. Okay. So server's running again. Refresh. All right. And notice here, if you, yeah, I can make that bigger. You can't see anything now. So notice first that the error I got is 422. I actually defined that error. So for once, I'm getting an error that I kind of wanted. So that's 422, which stands for unprocessable entity. How about this thing? Take a look at this contraption here. Data, errors, password, message, something is shorter than minimum length allowed. Looks like we got a whole bunch of validation errors. Somehow we need to access this and display to the user what the errors are. That's the tricky part here. So let's see if we can figure this out. So we know the object is data errors. And also if you want to look, because when we did the user save, we console logged the error. In fact, let's just make sure we're at the right place and say got error. Okay. Do that again. And here we go. So got error. And this error object we got back that contains all the validation errors looks like this crazy thing. Oops. So called validation error, user validation failed, bunch of gibberish. Oh, here we got errors key, and then we have a key for everything that failed. So password failed, how'd it fail, min length, bunch of other stuff. Oh, and here's interesting, and then we got other keys called message, name, properties, kind, and that's all for password. Username also had a bunch of errors. Okay. So we're getting everything back to the front end. So the factory just made the post request to users, sent it to user object, and then it takes callback error callback. So factory's done its job. So now we go to the Angular controller, and one of these is tripping up. So this console.log error or data, that's what this is. So this whole thing is one of these console logs, but I don't know which one for sure. Now, the second callback is your error callback, so that's the one that should be catching that. Let's just find out. Console log, first callback in uc.register. And then I'm going to say console.log, second callback in uc.register. All right. So let's see which one we're getting back. Refresh. Register. Back up here. Oh, it's not even saying it. Wait, where did I type that? That's in the Angular controller. Yeah, I'm intentionally tripping the validation errors because if everything passes, and there's really none due, so, but we can always check that. So I think I have, yeah, here's my Mongo shell running, so let's show DBs. Oh, I think I called it log demo, right? So let's use log demo, show collections, it's got users, see what's in users, nothing right now. So let's just add a real person. We'll say Ben Jerry, sure. Username, ice cream. Password, oh, I had like, oh man, I did like validator for, was it even catching password? Minimum length has to be 4. That's all it's catching, but I'll just go ahead. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Register. What happened? Oh, yep, see, so it's catching my custom validator. So let's go ahead and try that again. In fact, actually, I don't want to type in passwords with all these things, so too late to just get rid of that. Let's take that part out. Server's still running, hopefully, yep. Okay.
Aren't you going to restart the server since you changed the schema?
Well, won't hurt. Alright, that's all good. Here's my Mongo server. I'm still in that right thing there. restart. John something, because I can never think of stuff up. Name, yeah, why not? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Register. What's this? Connection refused. Okay, I think this is something different here, because it's trying to go to users and it's saying connection is refused. And looks like we got some kind of object here as a first name, last name, username, password of what I just created. Let's check our server. Oh no, it did crash. It crashed when it tried to bcrypt. Oh, bcrypt is not defined. So I guess I need to actually require it here. Require bcrypt. So let's see, did that? Yeah, okay. Restart, running, refresh, John, whatever, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, look at that, no errors. Okay, check our server, no errors, and check this out. All right, before we can go database, so in our server-side controller, we did new user.save. We did not see this, so clearly there was no errors, which there shouldn't have been. It passed all our validations. So we got back data, which that data is just the actual, it returns the instance of the object we created. And so we console logged it, which is this. And notice it has our ID. And here is our crazy hashed password. Much safer than seeing that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And if we now go into here, there he is. So there's a successful register. So we know it works. Passing validation. How about displaying the errors? Like I said, this is the tricky part. So we know we're responding with the errors. Let's go back to our controller. So userFactory.register. It's sending the object. First callback, second callback. It's not logging any of that, so I am missing something here. Let me check my other example factory, see what I'm missing. Oh, I forgot my, that's what it was. I knew something didn't look right. Yeah, those callback and error callback has nothing to do with the server side. So all we're doing is doing HTTP post request to users, passing it the object, server does its thing, then you pass in the callback and error callback. Okay, I have a parenthesis, so I'm good. Okay, so now once it gets something back, it knows if it's got a bad response error to skip the first callback and send to error. It should. We'll find out. So server running, refresh, let's give a bad thing, and here we go. We got, okay, we got our error response 422, and we are in the error callback. So second callback into register, and here's this object. Now here's an interesting thing, by the way. I was struggling with this for like ever earlier. Kate was like, try this. Well, you know it works. So notice I have two different lines on these console logs, a string and the error. Now, a lot of times you can concatenate a string. Got error. You know, let's concatenate it with stuff, with variables. I mean, we've all done it a billion times. But here's the interesting thing. You do that here, and look what you get back. So if you're you can't concatenate a string with an object because it doesn't all display the object, and all it displays is this object. And I was racking my head because I needed to see this object to know how to access the data in the object, but I couldn't figure out how to get into it until we did this. So,
Couldn't you just put a comma there instead of concatenating?
comma? Oh, let's see, what would that do? Let's see what'll happen. Server running, refresh. Oh, yeah. So there you go. There's another option. Good tip. So let's open up this error object. What do we have? We've got config, probably not what we want. Solid data's probably it. Headers doesn't sound like it. We already know about the status. So let's go into data. Yep, here we go, errors. All right, let's open up errors. Oh, and then we got one for password, one for username. Did I have it? I think I just had required for first name, last name, so there were none. Okay, so this is how we can access it. So let's do something like this. So if we got an error, we're in the Angular controller. So let's just create an error variable. Let's just say this dot validation errors equals, see if I can just define it right there, see what happens. So let's just say this dot validation errors equals, and now what was this object again? So data is this whole thing. I want to get into the data key of this whole object. So, oh wait, error is the name, what I named that entire object. Dot data. Dot errors. Okay, and then inside errors are multiple keys. But each one, here's the other trick. This is why it gets kind of tricky, because you don't just get the message back, you get a bunch of other objects back. So, but here's the good thing about this though. Since you are getting all these keys back for the fields, it's going to be a lot easier to separate out your error messages like per field. You know, instead of just like putting them all in a blob in one spot, it's going to be a lot easier to split them out and make it look, you know, nicer and stuff. So in this errors, so what we can do, we know inside the errors we have the other keys. Let's go to our HTML side. This error is this whole object. We don't need this whole object because we don't need this config. We don't need these headers. We don't need all this other jazz. We need what's in the data. But then again, this data has this prototype, and we need to go a little deeper, so we go all the way into the errors key of that data object of the error object. And now we're going to access these. So now we got password and name. So here we're just going to do, let's just do this. Let's just say, let's create a div above password. But we can do like say ngIf uc dot validation errors dot password. Let's display. I probably should name my validation errors key a little shorter. Dot password. And inside password, what do we want to display? Message. Dot message. Okay. And let's go ahead, copy that. Put it here for username. Copy that. And what was this last name? And let's do it one more time. Oh wait, why am I doing that? Just paste. First name. Okay. Let's see if that works. Not quite. Something's wrong here. All right, what's wrong? We got this. Well, let's just see what's in our controller here. Let's go ahead. Let's see what this is. So I'm going to go ahead and comment all these other ones out because we know that's working. And we're going to start just bogging ourselves down with data. So okay, so we did narrow it down. We got first name, last name, password, username. But that's inside here. So this dot validation errors. C dot validation errors. Dot first name. Dot message. So that part's right. And I'm echoing it out, or should be. The error is there is no error. This is one of those tough ones where it's like there's no error. The computer's doing what it's told, and there's nothing wrong with it. It's just not displaying what you want it to display. And I think, well, here, let's do this. Let's just say.
You don't have to do a for loop to get over those, do you?
No. Now, since this is just an object, and each one has just one message, you don't need to loop through it at all. What happens if I do? Let me just actually put a string here. So, do refresh. Okay. Yes. Okay. So this dot validation errors. I'm defining that wrong somehow here. Oh. Bet you that's it right there. Self. Let's try that again. Whoa, okay. Let's get rid of that. Go back in here. Refresh. Boom. Okay. So yeah, notice that instead of using the generic whatever is required, it wrote my custom message in there. And this is why it's, if you looked at this message that we had, it says like path something. And you can see it in the server here too. So message, path, first name is required. At least now it's separated between each section. You can use, I've used this kind property to actually like display a class if I want to change, the styling based on what the error was. So you can do it. You can use these other things for other stuff if you want to. So that's our registration. This has gone on for 2 hours and it's past 5. So how about I'd say that's a good stopping point. Should we finish login tomorrow? So part 2, login registration. So we're going to run over the login stuff today. I already got my server running. So let's reload. That's all up. All these are still working, and since I don't have a show page, I already got my database running. Let me go ahead and bring up my Mongo shell, and let's get in that database really quick. Use log demo, show collections, db.users.find. Pretty, make sure that's still in there. Okay, so we still have our one John in there. Username, whatever. I need to look this up because, I already forgot what my username was, and that's how I'm going to log in. So when we're going to log in, obviously we're going to use the username and password, and let's just write up some of the code because right now that does nothing. Okay, so here we got login. We got the uc.log user username and password, and it goes to the login function in the controller, and which we don't have yet. So let's write that up. So this, bring that up a little bit. So this dot login equals function, and again, just start logging things. Make sure we got what we need. What I call this log user is what I call the object. And if we do, we're going to go to the user factory. We're going to create a login method inside there. And we're going to pass it this user object from the form. And then we're going to have two callbacks again. So we're going to have a callback for if everything goes good. And first callback. Just log all that right up front. And then the second callback will be if things don't go good. And in that case, we would expect an error. Clean that up. Console.log. Second callback. Okay. So let's go now to the factory, because that's where it's going to look for the login. We haven't created that yet, so let's do that. Factory.login equals function. We're expecting a user object with login info, the successful callback, and the error callback. And then just to, again, make sure we're getting what we want, log that user. And we're basically we need to go to the database and try to find that user. So it's going to be an http:/post. Let's just send this to /login. We're going to pass in that object. Then callback, error callback. So that's what's going to go back to the controller. All right. So then from this factory, it's going to make a HTTP post request to the server. So let's go ahead and make sure we have that route, which we don't yet. So app.post /login. We'll just go into users, make a login function there. Should not need nothing else in the routes file, so close that. Okay, so now we go into the users controller, server controller. Let's add our login function. It's request response, and let's go ahead and log the rec.body. Make sure we got what we want. What are we going to do with that? Assuming we have what we want, we need to find that one user. So say var user equals user dot find. Let's just do find one. And what are we going to pass it? We're going to find one by the username. So actually it's the key. I'm going to look for the key username, passing in rec.body.username. Going to need a callback here because we're going to find one, but we have two possibilities here. Because when we go to find a user, what if the user has an invalid, or the username doesn't exist, misspelled it? Clearly it's going to return us something not good. So we need some kind of callback to catch that. And that's going to be our error or data. So if it goes to the database, says I cannot find that user, we should get back an error. So we'll do a check. If error, I believe so. We'll find out. Console.log inside if error, console.log error. Else console.log inside else, and log the, did I call it data? Yep, data. Okay. Let's just stop at that point. Let's just see if we're getting this far before we keep going ahead. Let's refresh this page. Let's just pass in a valid one, login. Okay, so controller, let's just follow along. So we hit login, which went to our controller login, console logged on line 18, which is line 18 right here. So we've got our object there. And then that went to the factory, login function. We log the user again in line 11, which is right here. So far so good. Then the factory did the post request to the server side, which went through the routes and should have gone into here. And we instantly console log rec.body. So let's check our server. And there it is. Rec.body is right here. So we are passing it. We found one. And look at that, inside the else. So here is our user object. Let me increase that. So we got our user object. So this one worked for when we found them. Let's try that again for wrong user. Don't matter what I put in there. So we try to log in. Everything's still logging. But what do we have here? Oh, it still went inside the else. So maybe it doesn't return. Okay, but it does return null.
That's what I think.
Yeah.
Returns a null.
So yeah, so it does not return errors. So it's easy. So it's still going to be there. So let's just do this. If data equals null, that means we did not find a user. We have an error. Okay. Now, since this is not, you no longer using Mongoose validations, because that's when we're creating a user, we don't have that crazy validation error object to get errors. But since we're already using, based on those validation errors, on the front side, especially like on our index, we're going through and showing them, we're storing it in controllers validation errors, and we have this like pathway. It's easier to just go ahead and keep the exact same pathway. At least I think so. So we're going to build our own error. So we're going to do a status if we want to, just like we did up here. Now here we did the res.json error. Since we don't have that here, we're going to build our own object. I'm going to refer back to how the object looked like inside the register. So we had the error object data.errors. So we'll say data is a key, and that key has an object called errors, and that's the key which has another object. Yeah, 'cause that's what went to the front. And the next key is the individual, the field, as well as message. So this field, actually it doesn't matter what field, because we don't care about telling them if the username or password is wrong, because it's not good to do that. If someone's trying to hack in and you tell them, hey, your username is right, but your password's invalid, well, the hacker now knows, oh, I got the right username, so let's just now focus on that username or email, whatever it is, and figure out the password. Whereas this way, if you don't tell them exactly what's wrong, they have no idea if they even got the right username or email or not. So it just, making life a little more difficult for the hacker. So we'll just say the key name here will just simply be, we'll just call it login. And one more key, because inside that, if you remember, we had this block that had a message, some other properties like kind. A lot of people like to use that kind key, like the type of, what's required or something like that for their styling or things like that. So, but here all I need is a message. Finally, we'll build up the actual message, which is just, invalid credentials, whatever. You just kind of do one of these numbers. Maybe that'll make it a little easier to see this crazy long object. Let's just take care of our error first. So that should return the error to the factory. It should hit that error callback. And it's going to be similar here. So let's just go ahead, data.errors. Okay. Start this over. Wrong user, password don't matter because the username is going to be wrong. Log in. Okay. So what do we get? Error connection refuse. We did hit our second callback though. Cannot read property errors of null. Okay, so we're not getting our object back. But we did hit this. Back to our factory. So let's take a look here. Oh. I'm going to make this a simple one first. I'll just do a simple object. So that should go back to the factory. Login user.then callback error callback. Okay, let's just do that. Do a simple JSON object, see what happens. Okay, that's a little better, kind of. So what do we got here? We have our object. Config data. This is not the object we're expecting. Oh, this is out of line 24. Okay, so that is what we're getting back. So this data is what we need to change. So let's do this. It's got to be right here. Oh, I think I need to do data dot data. Let's try that. I think that's where I was going wrong. Oh, broke my server. That's because I'm missing a parenthesis, right? Yeah, res.data.data. Not sure if that's right. That doesn't look right. I don't think it's going to work. Oh, still missing a parenthesis. Yeah, it's running. We'll get this fixed. Oh, I think I got more this time. Oh, there we go. All right. Okay.
That's deep.
Yeah, that is. So you do need to have process for an error, otherwise you're going to keep getting that thing. But at the same time, that's because it can return an error if there's an actual error. It not finding a user is not an error. It's just not finding a user. So we still need to account for if there happens to be an error. So no error because it found the data, which was nothing, so it's null. So we created our own JSON, which we are now definitely passing to the front. So now that we know we're getting that would be, and it is, oh, it's hitting the first callback though, because it's not an error, that's why. So we need to adjust our first callback. .data.errors. We already have this self.validation errors I'm storing, so I don't want to create another variable. Let's just use that same one. So self.validation errors equals, and this time, data.data.errors. Okay. Let's just go ahead and put our else in here. So .log data good. Okay, so now on our client side, we should have access to these errors exactly the same how we do here. So we're going to just copy this. And we'll just paste it right up here. Oh, actually, I just need this whole div. Command C. Okay. Okay, ngIf UC validate, except this time what I call it, I called it login. 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 Boom. Okay. Let's refresh this. Wrong user. Oh, it went into that data good for some reason. I think in going through all this, if I do that, that should trip the second callback. Let's find out. Completely forgot I took that out. Yeah. Okay. So now we can actually scratch all that I did. So now yeah, this makes more sense anyway. Okay. Well, the second callback is better access for the error anyway, so all right, we're getting our object. I am clearly not referring to it right, so our object name is error, or in this case validation errors, and we need the .data. I've got two datas. I'll just do that.
Can you go around
There we go. There we go. We got it. The what? Oh. Okay. So again, a tricky part is navigating this object we built, so I just built it a little bit too long. So I had data inside errors. But we're showing it. Obviously, normally you would style that be red or something a little more visible. Okay. We've handled our one error. So now let's go back to the user's controller and handle if we did get a user back. So else, we have this user, which should be in data. And then we want to do something. Well, what do we want to do? We want to check to see if the password is right, if it matches. And yesterday, we made this cool function here on that schema called valid password. And it uses bcrypt and basically compares the password that you pass in, which is going to come from the form, with the actual password from the database. So we're going to call on data. That is the instance of the object that has access to that method. What do I call it? Valid password. Valid password. And we need to pass it in the rec.body.password. And that should be it, because we pass in rec.body.password, and it's calling on this instance of data. So when it runs this function, this .password, this refers to that instance. So we only need to throw that one in. And let's actually save this, because that should return, it's going to return true or false. So actually, let's do this. Let's just say we're going to change our else if data means there's something in there, and data.validPassword console log inside else if So basically what we're going to say is, okay, we got the user, now check the password. If there's the user, which it should be, it's true, and this returns true, then we have a successful user, we can log in. And then we would just account for an else, which would be if those two aren't both true, that means the valid password didn't work. So we're just going to do the same thing with an error. We're literally just going to copy the exact same thing from if we didn't find a user so that the user doesn't know what's going on. What's that else blue? I don't like that this else is blue. Hold on. It says right here. Oh, wait. Else if... Oh, it doesn't like that one.
You're missing a parenthesis. You don't close your parentheses.
Oh. Yeah. That's it. Thank you. Okay. Go. So let's find the right user. His name was whatever. And just put in the wrong password. Alright, we got an error, invalid credentials. We still get our 422. And we did not console log anything, but so just console log. Got two final else, which means password was wrong. So whatever. We got all that. And there he goes. Got to final else, which means password was wrong. Okay, so now we've actually accounted for both possible errors. Now let's finish. Everything is good. So we got a user back. It passes the valid password. What do we want to do? Well, we want to respond with a JSON object as always. And what do we respond back with? You don't want to send a whole object back because that contains a password. So let's just pass the ID of that user, because then we can use that ID to get whatever we want. All right, and save this. Go back to our factory. That should trip the valid callback, which are right here inside the login. First callback, so first callback, everything is good. Let's log that data. Make sure that works. Server's good. Refresh. Whatever. With the password 123456. Log in. First callback, everything is good. And we've got this object. What does it contain? Just the user ID. Okay. So login is good, and then what we can do here, one way to save login info, let's see, this is a controller. Let's go into factory. Let's create a little thing, attribute here for factory, just say factory.logged user equals that. So we go back to the controller, we got our data back. Let's go ahead, and you can do this multiple ways. Because if we save this ID of this user in a controller, what's going to happen as soon as we go to a different partial in our app? Anyone? What's going to happen? We're going to lose that data. So one option, now there's two options. There are cookies and sessions you can use. If you don't use those, that's optional. You can also just save that info to the factory, and that way, anytime you go in between partials, even though the controllers reload, they have access to what's in that factory, and that factory will remain. So one way to do that, like I said here, hold on. And there's multiple ways you can do this. Is the way I've done it before. So okay, everything's good. I'm going to call on user factory. I'm going to create another method, just say set login and give it that data. So I can go in here, factory.set login, function, user, and all we're going to do is say factory.logged user equals user. So now what we can do, say we load this controller up, we can always just do a check right up here. So we can say if user factory dot logged user user is logged in, else not logged in. Okay, let's see if this works. Server's running. Refresh the page. And oh, I need to change this. So if factory.log user ID, because that logged user did exist. It was an empty object, but the ID doesn't exist, so it's not logged in. So let's just go ahead and log in. Okay, it doesn't actually refresh this controller. That's why it's not showing up. But what you can do, say you go to another partial, and it'll instantly reload this controller, and it'll make this check. If the ID exists inside the factory, we know the person's logged in, we can continue loading the controller. Else, if not, you can do something like this, or use location and just send them back to the root URL. I have not set up location, so that part won't work right now. But that's one way to keep track of if a user is logged in or not. Or, if you want, you can use Angular cookies and or Express session. So those are optional, but login registration has now gone way over time, so I won't fully go into that. But that is optional. You can use either method for the exam, basically. Questions?